Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Guidance Corner. My name's Christelle. This week's weekly discussion is about self-care and how what we do and sometimes don't do can really impact our well-being. And we'll be discussing why that matters, how self-care can actually help us identify maybe when we're not at our best, maybe when our emotional or mental or even physical well-being is actually declining. And these signs that I'm going to talk about today, and of course, we're all different. So there'll be different things that we do and no longer do that impact our well-being in different ways. But this will give you already an idea, already time to reflect on what that looks like and what that means for you. So what does self-care mean? Now, we talk a lot about self-care, especially in the counseling area, and we hear it talked about a lot. What are you doing for your self-care? In this discussion this week, I'm going to talk about what we do that is self-care, that does promote our well-being, and also what we don't do that promotes self-care and promotes our well-being. So why is this topic important? I was not planning on doing this discussion so early in these weekly discussions. But as I was meditating on a different weekly discussion, I realized that self-care actually assists us in everything, in recognizing when we are declining in our well-being, and also recognizing, okay, well, what can I do now that I realize things aren't going well? My mental well-being, my emotional well-being, my physical well-being might not be at its best. I might be on a decline. I might not be going great. How can self-care help with that? How can self-care also help me identify that I'm on the decline? So in this week's discussion, we're just going to concentrate on what well-being looks like and how it assists us to recognize that, oh, we're letting our well-being slip. So let's have a look at some of the things we might do on a day-to-day or regular basis that enables us to maintain our well-being. They are things that we do that contribute to mental health, emotional health, physical health. So like I said earlier, this is going to be probably different for everybody, but the basis of it will be the same. It is basically things that help us maintain health and well-being. So that can be a morning walk. That can be sleeping well. That can be factoring in fun times. That can be eating healthy. That can be not watching shows that impact us in some negative way. It can be as grand as fulfilling a dream. We might decide we want to run a marathon and getting to the point that we trained and now we're running that marathon. And it can be as basic and everyday as just maintaining our cleanliness, washing our hair, keeping our body clean, maybe even moisturizing our skin. So as you can see, this is such a broad topic on what we can do to maintain our well-being. There's also things we can not do to maintain our well-being. And those things are things that we know that don't contribute to our mental, emotional, or physical health. These can be things like staying up late. It can be not going to exercise. It can be eating those foods that we know are not good for us. It can be putting off catching up with friends, hitting that snooze button. So again, there's lots of things, and they're the everyday, and then we've got bigger ones like maybe not smoking. So now we've got an idea of the way that I'm using self-care and what it means. And I've just given you some examples, but obviously you need to look at how that applies for you. And so now I want to look at how does those self-care, the things that we do to increase our well-being and the things that we don't do to increase our well-being, how they can guide us towards how we might be feeling, how we might be functioning at the moment, how we're going. Are we going well? Are we on a bit of a decline? Now, decline, I've been trying to search for a better word, but I also want to be as clear as I can. So I am going to use the word decline, even though I don't particularly like it. What do I mean by decline? Decline in our well-being, I mean, they're those first little signs that give us indications that I'm struggling. Oh, I'm not at my best. Oh, I'm going to keep an eye on how I'm going. Now, as a little side note here, I want to talk about contrast. Life is all about contrast, and I am going to do a separate weekly discussion on contrast because it's such an interesting topic. But life is contrast. So if we are aiming for a life with no contrast, and what do I mean by contrast? I mean when everything is one way or the other, everything is brilliant, everything is happy, everything is wonderful. There are no disappointments. There is no sadness. There is no anger. There's only joy and happiness and upbeat and energy. That's not the real world that we live in. It is a guideline to how we want to live. We want to live with more joy in our life. We want to live with more health and well-being in our life. We want to live happy, vibrant, energetic. Those feelings, those emotions, those state of beings is like a bar. That's where we want to be. But also mental health, when we're in our right frame of mind, when we're healthy both mentally and emotionally and physically, we realize that that's not sustainable. Life is full of contrast. So there will be the ups and the downs, the goods and the bads, the energy and the tiredness, the lethargicness. But knowing what joy is, knowing what health is, it helps us realize when we're on the decline, when we're not as vibrant, when we're not as healthy, when we're not as even just stable, mentally stable, physically stable. It doesn't mean we have to be always riding high or flying high, but even just maintaining a norm. Self-care helps us realize when we're on a decline. So why is that important? When we are declining, why is that important to know, to realize? And it's not to maintain, and this is something I want to be very, very clear about. We are not aiming for perfection. We're not aiming for to always be happy, to always be vibrant. That's not how life works. There's the contrast. But what we want to do and what self-care helps us do is to not decline too far down, to realize that we are on a decline. Because sometimes when we've got enough momentum behind us, when we're excited about something, or even when we were excited about something, we get this momentum, we're on a roll. And sometimes that momentum carries us much further than what our energy levels or what our joy levels actually would have. So this momentum sometimes can carry us past the point where we realize, oh, I've overdone it. And suddenly we don't see the decline. We just hit the ground. We just hit the bottom. And that's fine because sometimes we need to do that. And that's where a lot of growth happens. But when we come to a point where we have greater understanding and we have, I want to say, a little bit of wisdom and a little bit of clarity on who we are as an individual and how we function, looking at our self-care actually enables us to not hit rock bottom, to actually pause before and say, hang on a minute, I'm doing a whole bunch of things that I know now is not good for me. And I'm no longer doing a whole bunch of things that I know is good for me. Okay, I know as me, that's a sign that something's up. This also gives us insight into situations in our life, understanding our self-care and saying, oh, hang on a minute, I'm not doing that anymore. I haven't done that for weeks. Or, oh, gee, I'm doing this again and I know it's not good for me. Oh, why am I doing that? Instant, you start to kind of look into it and go, okay, hang on a minute, what's happening here? What's happening here for me that I need to realize before this goes any further? So this is great because we can apply this to different things in our life. We can apply this to our jobs, our family life. We can apply this to absolutely anything. And it gives us almost like a yardstick, a measuring stick as to how are we dealing with life at the moment? How are we dealing with this new situation? How are we dealing with whatever is going on for us in life? So let me give you an example. So my example of self-care is, and I've just picked a very simple one, but it's true. I love my coffee and I have my coffee every day, and that's fine. I function well with it. There's not a problem with that. And I like chocolate, but when I'm well, I can take it or leave it. I have noticed that when I'm overtired or overdoing it, I crave coffee all day long and I have to have chocolate. I become a chocoholic. And I know that I'm not. So when I start buying chocolate, and I'm talking by the block, and when my one morning coffee does not satisfy me anymore, that is my sign that I'm running on empty or I'm heading towards running on empty. I've overdone it. I'm overdoing it. And so I'm going to take that example further. So I'm using this example because it actually happened quite recently for me. So when I sat with that, when I realized that my morning coffee is not enough anymore, I literally could drink coffee, just have one beside me all day long. And chocolate is all I want. It's my roadmap. It's my almost like my wake-up call. So when I looked at this a little bit deeper, when I sat with it, and I'm going to say when I say I sat with it, it's almost like I meditated on it. I just sit and I just think about it. I just let it swirl in my head and see where it goes. And I realized that, I'm not sleeping well. I'm doing a lot. I'm expecting a lot of myself. Suddenly I'm not, I would prioritize maybe work or prioritize something that I had gotten a roll on with above quiet time, rest time, sleep, something fun. So I'm hoping that this example, and you will find your own when you start to notice, you will realize how many different things link up with different states of your well-being. So this one for me is a sign that I'm overdoing it. This is a sign that my enthusiasm, something that started off as like, oh yes, this is going to be great, I've got some momentum behind it, and I've taken it further. I've pushed harder for longer than I should have. And so I'm needing the coffee and the chocolate to keep me going. Now, that is like a blueprint. That is like my little reminder. Once I actually sat with that, meditated on that, I don't think next time it's going to take me a couple of weeks to realize. The next time I start to fall down that way, and the next time might be I've already had a couple of coffees. I've already bought the chocolate. I've already eaten the chocolate. It might take a few days. And then I might go, oh, hang on a minute. I remember. Then the times, and I might do that for a little while. And then the times after that, I might be at the shop about to buy the chocolate. when I go, oh, hang on a minute, I'm buying sugary chocolate, not the chocolate that I would normally go for. Or suddenly, I look down at my shopping basket and I've got 3 blocks of chocolate. That's going to be my, oh, hang on a minute, my little reminder. And we have that with everything. And this is where self-care is so beneficial to us. So in this discussion, I'm not even going to talk about how self-care helps us physically and mentally. I'm talking about it in the sense of how it shows us where we are at. I will do a meditation on this, and I think this one's going to be really important because it's going to help to center you so that you can actually start to look at, what do I do that increases my self-care, and what do I do that decreases my self-care? And also we'll put that all together. Where does that lead when I do those things or don't do those things? What is that indicating to my mental, emotional, and physical well-being? I'll also have a blog on this topic so you can sit, read, allow it to sink in, take a moment to pause. And there'll also be the journaling worksheets as well. I also want to mention that this observation of our self-care works on all levels. I've given fairly mundane examples here, but it also works on a very, very deeper level, bigger level. It can be signs on how we're going in a relationship. It can be signs on how are we doing at work. It can be signs on how our physical body is going. And sometimes we might be able to sit with ourselves and actually come to that conclusion. Sometimes we might need a bit of counseling to help us dig a bit deeper, to see how they link up with aspects of our life, how they link up with even mental health, emotional health, how they can tie in together. So if you are finding you've got situations in your life that you know are impacting your well-being and your self-care, don't hesitate to book an appointment with me, and we'll see what we can unpack together. So back to self-care and how it points to what is going on in our life. It takes time to realize this. It takes time to actually recognize and then to make changes. But recognizing our self-care and how that impacts our life, or how that shows us that we are on a decline, it can really help us change the situation. It can help us not hit rock bottom. It can help us change habits, and sometimes deeply embedded habits like smoking or drinking too much, or not prioritizing our sleep, not eating the right things. Those are things sometimes that become such a part of us that it's almost an addiction. It's something that is just so habitual that we don't even realize we're doing it. We're sort of doing it almost sleepwalkingly. So our self-care can show us all that. It can pinpoint, it can guide us to look at those aspects of our life. And by looking at those aspects of our life, often it will help us change our self-care, maintain our self-care. So I hope this topic has been interesting for you. I hope it has given you a little bit of clarity, a little bit of something to mull over, something to think about. As with always, all the free resources will be pinned in the comment section below. And I just want to wish you a wonderful week. Take very good care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.